Number 5. The Amityville House. 30 miles outside of New York City, nestled in the Long Island town of Amityville, stands the house forever linked to the Amityville horror phenomenon. On November 13, 1974, the estate was the scene of mass murder. Using a rifle, 23-year-old Ronald J. DeFeo Jr. shot and murdered his entire family while they were asleep, which included his parents and 4 siblings. After committing the murders, Ronald DeFeo Jr. first told police that he found his parents' bodies earlier in the evening when he stopped by the house, and that he ran in a panic and drove to a local bar for help. It was discovered later that Ronald himself was actually responsible for the heinous crimes. At his trial, DeFeo's attorneys argued that he killed his family members because voices in the home had convinced him to do it. 13 months after the murders, George and Kathy Lutz purchased the home for them and their 4 young children at a drastically reduced price of $80,000, but only lasted 28 days before leaving it. George described the events at Amityville at a paranormal convention. He said, "As soon as Kathy had walked into the house, she had a smile on her face that just beamed. That hadn't happened in all the previous homes we looked at. I knew from the look on her face that this was to be our dream home." Soon after moving in though, things changed dramatically. George Lutz claimed that the family smelled strange odors, heard strange noises, and felt a strange chill in the air. When they had a priest bless the home, Lutz said, the priest was slapped by a haunted hand and told to get out in a demonic voice. Even after having the place blessed by the priest, George and Kathy said they began experiencing strange things. Banging noises, footsteps untraceable to any family member's movements, mysterious and pervasive odors, green jello-like substances leaking from walls, swarms of houseflies, and many times they found eyes peering in at them from outside the windows. Even the family's behavior began to change. George was often sick, went days without bathing and lost weight, while Kathy had constant nightmares, and the children were constantly fighting with one another. Their spine-tingling tales of paranormal activity is what propelled the legend of the Amityville Horror, and spawned a torrent of books, documentaries and films. In an interview in 2013, the Lutz's eldest son, Daniel, now 47 years old, insists he was menaced by spirits in the house, and that his family's stay there ruined his life. Number 4. The Villisca Axe Murder House. On June 10, 1912, the Moore family was sleeping peacefully in their beds. Joe and Sarah Moore were asleep upstairs, while the children slept down the hall. Shortly after midnight, a stranger entered through an unlocked door. He picked up an oil lamp from a nearby table. On one hand, the stranger held the lamp, lighting the way through the house. In the other hand, he held an axe. The next morning, the neighbors became suspicious, noticing that the usually rambunctious home was dead quiet. They alerted Joe's brother, who arrived to take a look. What he saw was enough to make him sick. The whole family was bludgeoned beyond recognition. After murdering the Moores, the killer apparently set up some kind of ritual. He had covered the Moore parents' heads with sheets, and the Moore children's faces with clothing. He then went through each room in the house, covering all of the mirrors and windows with cloths and towels. The identity of the stranger was never discovered, and to this day, the case remains unsolved. After the murders, the house was lived in for years by many other families, although they never stayed for long. Almost all the families reported sightings of apparitions, disembodied footsteps, things moving on their own, and shadow figures moving throughout the house. The house was purchased in 1994 and turned into a tourist attraction for those daring enough to brave the home. In 2014, Robert Stephen Lorson Jr. was one such visitor. He arrived with a group of friends for a recreational paranormal investigation. While he was alone in the northwest bedroom, and the rest of the party was outside, he cried out for help. His friends discovered him stabbed in the chest by an apparent self-inflicted stab wound. Lorson was rushed to a nearby hospital before being helicoptered to Creighton University Medical Center. It is unknown whether Robert was attacked by a spirit, or he was compelled to cause harm to himself by the dark forces of the house. However, According to a Montgomery County police report, the incident happened around 12:45 a.m., which is said to be the approximate time that the 1912 murders of Joe and Sarah Moore, along with their children, took place. Number 3. The House of Seven Gables. The Turner Ingersoll House, better known as the House of the Seven Gables, was built by John Turner in the mid-17th century. The Turner family amassed a large fortune through merchant activities and the shipping industry, and additions to the house made it one of the largest homes in Salem. After John's death in 1742, the following generations of Turners had lost most of the fortune, and the house eventually landed in the hands of one Samuel Ingersoll. Samuel's daughter, Susanna, was frequently visited by her cousin Nathaniel Hawthorne, who would later go on to write the famous novel that dubbed the house its name. The house's hauntings have been linked to many generations of horror, reportedly becoming haunted by several unknown spirits during the prolific Salem witch trials. Nathaniel's great-grandfather, John Hawthorne, was in fact responsible for sending many of the accused witches to the gallows. Nathaniel claimed his family was cursed for his great-grandfather's actions by the numerous accused witches that were executed at his hand. With the house's close connection to the Salem witch trials, many witnesses have claimed to have seen or encountered apparitions of the past. Silhouettes in the shadows of every floor, the ghost of a little boy playing near the attic, and even the spirit of Susanna Ingersoll are just a few of the entities said to have been seen. As the house now stands as a museum, even the museum's staff have reported such strange encounters, such as lights turning on and off at will, water faucets turning on their own, and numerous reports of the feeling of an unknown entity in the house. A psychic woman once took a tour of the house and claimed that she saw a young boy playing up near the gables, even going so far as to capture him in a photograph. All of these oddities combine to make for one of New England's most famous haunted dwellings. Number 2. The Lizzie Borden House. The Lizzie Borden House in Fall River was home to the Borden family from 1874 to 1892. On the morning of August 4, 1892, Andrew Borden was at work, while his wife, and Lizzie's stepmother, Abby, was upstairs cleaning one of the bedrooms of the home. While cleaning, Abby was horrifically bludgeoned in the head with an axe. Later that day, when Andrew returned home from work, he entered the house, unknowingly downstairs to his wife's lifeless body in the bedroom above. He lay down on the couch to take a nap, and as he lay sleeping, he too was hacked to death, likely never waking to discover who had attacked him. The family's daughter, Lizzie, was apparently in the barn eating a pear when the attack took place, and later reported the crime to police after discovering the bodies. The police grew skeptical of Lizzie's alibi, as it was no secret that Lizzie in fact hated her stepmother and likely blamed her father for the disharmony. Several months after the murders, although the murder weapon was never identified, Lizzie was charged with the murders of her parents. But after only 10 days of testimony at her trial, a jury found Lizzie not guilty of the crime and acquitted her of any wrongdoing. The house today now stands as a bed and breakfast. Visitors fascinated with the case can stay a night in the house, many of them opting to sleep in the very room where Abby was murdered. Many visitors and paranormal investigators have claimed to have captured the voice of Abby herself speaking to them, photos of strange lights up and down the staircase, and frequently capture photos of apparitions near where Abby's body was discovered lifeless next to her bed. The house has been featured in popular paranormal investigation shows, which features footage of drawers opening by themselves, furniture moving by itself, and even capturing a female voice saying Abby's name. To this day, it remains one of the most popular haunted destinations of the United States. Number 1. The Winchester Mystery House. The Winchester Mystery House was once the personal residence of Sarah Winchester, the widow of firearm magnate William Ward Winchester. Located in San Jose, the Victorian-style mansion is renowned for its size, its architectural curiosities, and its lack of any master building plan. After the death of William, and the infant death of her daughter, Sarah Winchester contacted a psychic medium. While the medium was allegedly channeling the spirit of Sarah's late husband, she told her that she needed to continuously build the house to confuse the vengeful spirits that were victims of the Winchester rifle, further stating that the deaths of her husband and daughter were a result of the blood money earned by the Winchester dynasty. Sarah began construction on the mansion, using the vast wealth the family had amassed. Construction workers worked day and night on the home for decades, until it stood a labyrinth of confusing hallways, staircases that lead to nowhere, and doors that open to nothing. As some had undoubtedly heard of Sarah's speculation of ghosts, the workers reported many strange things that they couldn't explain. The home was never finished. It remained under construction until the day Sarah Winchester died. She made no mention of the house in her will, and left no heir to inherit the property. Today, the Winchester mansion still stands. Harry Houdini once visited the house in order to disprove the widely held belief that the house was haunted. He left the house with his skepticism shaken, not knowing what to believe. Some visitors have sworn to have seen the ghosts of construction workers, many reporting the ghosts wearing white overalls or using tools. Others claim to see a woman in Victorian clothing standing in the windows, who they claim to be the ghost of Sarah Winchester herself. The Winchester house is still widely recognized as one of the most fascinating and haunting locations in the United States and the world.